Yo, what's up guys? Toby here with another video. And today's video we are doing part 3 to Selena with Love. I want to tell you what happens in chapter 5 and 6. And I'm telling you guys, it's a really good chapter. In those two chapters, it's really good. That's where they get married, people. So let's get to it. Alright, here you go. Alright, here you go. Chapter 5, a secret wedding. There you go. There you go. So, this chapter, it kicks off with Selena and Chris seeing each other on the low. Because, like I said in my last video, Abraham kicked Chris out of those dinos because they're seeing each other behind Abraham's back, and he did not want that. So by this time, they're seeing each other. They didn't want Abraham to know about it. Selena was fed up of it. She wanted just to love Chris. She wanted to be open about it and make her dad accept it that she loves Chris. Abraham always saw Chris as a threat to Selena and the band because he always said he's garbage, he's a bad musician and all that. But Selena was fed up. So this one time, Chris was staying at this hotel in San Antonio. It's right across Corpus Christi. I'm not sure. I'm not from Texas, so I don't know too much. That's what I heard in the book. It's right across from Corpus Christi. He would usually stay there when he would visit Selena. So Chris would usually stay in a hotel that he could usually see Selena the next day as well. So this one time, Chris went over to Corpus Christi, spent the whole day with Selena, and checked in at a hotel. Someone in the morning, like around 8 in the morning, was knocking on his door, banging on his door. He said to himself, there's no way these people are going to kick me out because my checkout time's at 3, not at 8 in the morning. So he just ignored it, and they kept on banging and banging. So he ignored it again. And then eventually they kept on banging the door. That's where he got fed up. And then he was like, dude, just leave. It's not my time already. I check out at 3 o'clock. He stopped knocking on the door. That's where Chris put on his jeans and his shirt to go check who it was. And it was Selena who was banging on the door. Chris said that Selena came into the hotel room crying, explaining that she can't keep it a secret no more. She wants to get married. But Chris said we can't yet. And then that's what Selena said, we have to get married because that's the only way her dad will accept them if they get married. And they could prove to him that they really love each other. So Chris thought about it. He's like, no, we can't. Just like, they're both not ready for that. And then they were talking about marriage and how they want the perfect life for each other. And that's what Selena said, I don't care if the band splits up, I have you, and that's what matters. And that's where Chris smiles. And then Selena convinces Chris to get married. So they go to the place where they get married. I'm not sure what it's called. But they went to the place, they got there, and they both signed papers. And they thought no one's going to find out about it. An hour later, they reported on the radio that Selena and Chris got married. And they were on the way to Corpus Christi to tell their dad that they just got married because no one knew at the time until they told the radio that Chris and Selena got married. So they didn't go to Corpus Christi. Selena and Chris were furious. They're like, dude, what happened? Because Selena wanted to tell Abraham the right way. Not by him listening to the radio that Selena would hide that for him, that they got married behind his back. So the next day, Chris and Selena went to Abraham's house to tell Abraham. And so Selena went inside while Chris was outside in his red Porsche, which was Selena's red Porsche later on in the story. And that's where Selena went inside and talked to her dad. Her dad was in the office, and she went in. She was like, Dad, and then that's where Abraham started crying. And that's where Selena said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do this to you. And then that's what Abraham said, no, it's fine. I completely understand. You love Chris, and Chris loves you. And I'm happy you did that because that's really the only way you could prove to me that you actually love the man and he loves you back. At first, Chris said that he thought it wouldn't go that way, that Abraham would deny it and would want Selena to get a divorce with him. But that didn't. So Abraham would eventually accept Chris into the family, and that's what Selena told Chris to come inside the house. So the whole Quintanilla family welcomed him to the family. They were excited, and they had a gig in San Antonio the next day. And that's where Abraham offered Chris his job back. He was like, Chris, do you have a guitar? And that's what Chris said, yes, he does. And he said if you want to do a gig with them in San Antonio. And that's where Chris joined back Los Dinos. And that's where the whole band was relieved that the drama was over. Abraham knew that they were married, and he was perfectly fine with that. So guys, that ends for chapter 5. And it was a really short chapter. I thought it would be longer, but it was really short. It was like 8 or 9 pages. It wasn't that long. Let's go to chapter 6 now. Alright, chapter 6. Our first months as man and wife. Here you go. Alright, so basically what this chapter says is that Chris eventually moved out of his dad's apartment and moved into Selena's apartment. At this time, they didn't have a house. Selena was living with their parents, but once they got married, they rented out their own apartment. And Chris said it was half studio, half apartment. He would say Abraham would come visit like almost every single day, and every time he saw him, his hands went cold, his whole body went cold, because he would think that Abraham still didn't like the idea of them being married and the title of them being married. So they would move in, and that's where A.B. Quintanilla would work on the hit songs like Como la Flor, Bidi Bidi Bama, and La Carcacha. That's where he would work on the songs at Selena's apartment, which was a studio at the time. He said that he would always work there with Chris and the band to make songs. Chris said his first 6 months of marriage to Selena was the best time of his life. Chris said that they were unstoppable, that they loved each other so much. So this one night, Selena and Los Dinos were playing a gig in Texas, I don't know where, but a good friend of Chris is a guitar designer. So this is what Chris asked his friend if he could do a cool design on the Jackson guitar. And that's what his friend said, of course, what do you want, Chris? And that's where Chris said, can you give me a portrait of Selena on a white Jackson? And this is how it looked. Right here. Portrait of the white Jackson right there. He still has it to this day as his backup guitar. So he told his friend that he wanted Selena at the start. And that's when Selena came in and saw Chris destroying his whole guitar. He's like, Chris, what are you doing? And that's when Chris told Selena, I'm going to get some art put on this guitar. And that's when Chris's friend asked him again, what do you want on a guitar? And Chris's friend knew what Chris already wanted. And that's what Chris said, just surprise me. So a few weeks went by, and that's where Chris got a guitar back. And he said it looked beautiful, it looked perfect, that he loved it a lot. And that's where he showed Selena. And Selena fell in love with it immediately. She was like, you really did that for me? For me, she said. And that's what Chris said, yeah, it's for you. I made it for you. And that's where Chris said, no matter where you go, you'll always be a part of me. Because you're my guitar now. And Selena loved it. Selena and Chris had to get used to each other living in the same place. Because Chris said it was very difficult at first. But after a while, they got used to it. Because it was his first time being in a serious relationship. Moving to an apartment with his wife and all that. And that's where they were finally relieved that they couldn't believe they were actually married. Like, Chris, we're actually married. We're in our own apartment now. We don't have to worry about anything. We're actually married. We're going to hide anything now. So they would go happily on and be a married couple as they would. Alright guys, that ends part 3 for today. I hope you guys liked this video. Subscribe, drop a like, turn on post notification. Until